Good day, sir. I am Fernie Mukuuyag, and for today, I will be reporting along with my other group members, Kyla Sagun and Daniela Corongoy. We are the Group 13, and we will be discussing about the environmental health and sanitation. So what is an environmental health? So this is concerned with the prevention of illness through managing the environment and by changing the behavior of the people to promote the reduction of exposure to biological and non-biological agents that is causing disease and injury. This is also concerned with the effects of the environment towards the health of the people in the community. So according to the Department of Health, the Presidential Decree 856 in 1978, the Environmental Health Services, or the EHS unit, is authorized to act on all issues and concerns in the environmental and health, including the very comprehensive Sanitation Code of the Philippines. So this sanitary code is a set of standards that is established and enforced by the government for the health requirements of the people, as well as to promote sanitation. Then we have the 11 major environmental and sanitation laws. So first, we have the Republic Act 9003, the Ecological Solid Waste Management Act of 2000. So this law ensures the proper segregation, collection, storage, treatment, and disposal of solid waste through the formulation and adoption of the best eco-waste products. So proper segregation is important to lessen the waste that goes to the landfill, which makes the cost and expense for the government cheaper, and it is way better as well for the people and the environment. Next, we have the Republic Act 9275, which is the Philippine Clean Water Act of 2004. The law aims to protect the country's water bodies from pollution from land-based sources, which are the industries and commercial establishments, agriculture, and community or household activities. So clean water is one of the most important factors for a healthy ecosystem. This water supports the diversity of plants and wildlife. Without this water, it is impossible that we may preserve the life here on Earth. So that's why it is very important to make sure that our water is clean. Next, we have the Republic Act 8749, which is the Philippine Clean Air Act of 1999. So this law aims to achieve and maintain clean air that meets the national air quality guideline values for criteria pollutants throughout the Philippines, while minimizing the possible associated impacts to the economy. So air quality is important because air pollutants get into our lungs and then they enter into our bloodstreams and into our internal organs, such as our brains, which may cause severe health problems. And we want to prevent that thing from happening. So we make sure that our air is clean. Next, we have the Republic Act 6969, which is the Toxic Substances Hazardous and Nuclear Waste Control Act of 1919. So this law aims to regulate, restrict, or prohibit the importation, manufacture, processing, sale, distribution, use, and disposal of chemical substances and mixtures that presents unreasonable risk to the human health. So hazardous waste is not only a risk to our surrounding air, water, and soil, but it is also harmful to the ecological environment and human health. And so thus it is important for us to manage our waste on toxic substances. Then we have the Presidential Decree 1586, which is the Environmental Impact Statement, or the EIS statement of 1978. So the Environmental Impact Assessment System was formally established in 1978 with the enactment of Presidential Decree number in 1586. Their main objective is to facilitate the attainment and maintenance of rational and orderly balance between socioeconomic development and environmental protection. So this aims to protect the environment despite the increasing demand of natural resources and development to attain sustainability. Then we have the Presidential Decree 856, the Sanitation Code of the Philippines. It says that prescribe sanitation requirements for food establishments and refuse collection and disposal system of cities and municipalities. So under this, it basically tells us that food and non-food businesses establishments are required to secure sanitary permit to make sure that they observe the standard of the Sanitary Code of the Philippines in order for them to operate their business. Then we have the Presidential Decree 825, which is the anti-littering law. So providing penalty for improper disposal of garbage and other forms of uncleanliness and for other purposes. So this presidential decree states that any person who litters or throw garbage, filth, or other waste matters in public places shall be given a fine or shall suffer an imprisonment. Then we have the Republic Act 9512, which is the National Environmental Awareness and Education Act. So this act aims to promote environmental awareness through environmental education and for other purposes. Then the Executive Order 26, the nationwide smoking ban. This executive order invoked the Clean Air Act of 1999 and the Tobacco Regulation Act of 2003 to impose a nationwide ban on smoking in all public places in the Philippines. So this law or act basically bans smoking in all public places, or a person shall suffer a consequence and shall be given a fine. Then the last two major environmental and sanitation laws, here we have the Republic Act 10611, which is the Food Safety Act. This act aims to strengthen the food safety regulatory system in the country to protect the consumer's health and facilitate market access to local foods and food products and other purposes. Basically, this act just tells us that the food that we eat, dumadaan sila sa process that it should be clean all the time. Then we have the Republic Act 11311, which is the provision of clean toilets in public transportation terminals. So this act aims to improve the public terminals, stations, stops, rest areas, and roll-on or roll-off terminals with their services to the public. So it is important for us to sanitize public bathrooms and remove germs and other pathogens from the area in order to reduce the transmission of some rather unpleasant diseases. So yes, now we move on to the program strategies and activities. So this is focused on environmental sanitation, environmental health impact assessment, and occupational health through the interagency collaboration. This interagency committee on environmental health was created by virtue of Executive Order 489 to facilitate and improve coordination among concerned agencies. So we have 5 sectoral tasks in the committee, which are on water, solid waste, air toxic, chemical substances, and occupational health. Next, we have the vision, mission, and their goals. So their vision is to improve the health settings for all the Filipinos. Their mission is to provide a leadership in ensuring the health settings for all the Filipino people. While their goal is to reduce the environmental and occupational that is related to the cause of diseases, disabilities, and death through the health promotion and mitigation of the hazards and risks in the environmental and workspaces. So the environmental and sanitation is the prevention and control of diseases by eliminating or controlling environmental factors which may form links in disease transmission. This is the study of all factors in man's physical environment which may exercise a harmful effect on health, well-being, and survival. So here we have the importance of environmental sanitation. This is important because it promotes health, the well-being of the humans. It prevents the disease transmission. It eliminates the breeding places of insects and rodents that may be a carrier of a disease. And it improves the quality of life of the humans. Then we have here the areas of environmental health and their problems. So here we have the representation of the field of environmental health where they are divided into different categories. So here we have the built environment, work-related exposure, the outdoor air quality. So the built environment is the building spaces and products that are created for modified by people. So here we have health problems examples in built environment, which are drunk driving, secondhand smoking, noise exposure, urban crowding, technological hazards. Now, the work-related exposure is the occupational exposure to environmental hazards. The health problems in this are the asbestos exposure, agricultural accidents, and excessive exposure to X-rays. The outdoor air quality is concerned with the risk of severe weather and the purity of the air. The health problems that you can get from here are the gaseous pollutants, the greenhouse effects, the destruction of the ozone layer, the aerial spraying of herbicides and pesticides, as well as the acid rain. So for the next reporter, we have Kyla Sagon.
So these are the examples of the environmental health and their problems, which includes the built environment, work-related exposure, outdoor air quality, healthy home, water quality, food safety, and waste management. For the built environment, this includes the drunk driving, secondhand smoke, noise exposure, urban crowding, technological hazards. And for the work-related exposure, includes the asbestos exposure, the agricultural accidents, excessive exposure to X-rays, and for the outdoor air quality, gaseous pollutants, greenhouse effect, destruction of the ozone layer, aerial spraying of herbicides and pesticides, acid rain, and nuclear facility emissions. And for the next one, is the healthy home and water quality, whereas the healthy home, the availability of safety, structural strength, cleanliness, and location of the shelter, including public facilities and family dwellings. These are the examples of health problems. Examples are the homelessness, the rodent and insect infestation, the presence of lead-based paint, the unsafe neighborhood. And for the water quality, the availability of and accessibility to a clean water supply. And the examples are the contamination of drinking supply by human waste, oil spills in the roads waterways, the pesticide or herbicide infiltration of the groundwater. For the last two areas of the environmental health and their problems are the food safety and the waste management. And for the food safety is the availability, relative costs, variety, safety, and health of animal and plant food sources. And for the waste management is the management of waste materials resulting from industrial and municipal processes. Whereas the problems and Examples of the food safety are the malnutrition of the bacterial food poisoning, food adulteration, disruption of food chains by ecosystem destruction, the carcinogenic chemical food additives. And for the examples of waste management, health problems is the use of non-biodegradable plastics, poorly designed solid waste dumps, and the inadequate sewage systems, the radioactive hazardous wastes. For the built environment, it is consists of the connections of among people, communities, and their surroundings, environments that affect health behaviors and habits, interpersonal relationships, cultural values, and customs. There is growing evidence that the built environment directly and indirectly affect health outcomes and disease rates. One review of literature found that neighborhoods that are more walkable are associated with increased physical activity, increased social capital, lower overweight, lower reports or depression, and less reported alcohol abuse. And for the good built environment and bad built environment, according to Schulz et al. 2013 and Kerr et al. 2010, it is found that women are more likely to increase physical activity if they live in walkable community compared to men. And for the bad built environment, a research study found that adolescents living in rural, working class, or mixed race urban neighborhoods were more likely to be overweight than peers in newer suburbs, regardless of their socioeconomic status, age, race, and ethnicity. So how does the built environment affect health? So for the conceptual model of how the built environment affects health is the four categories. We have four categories: the built environment, mediating factors, downstream pathways, health status. And for the underlying context for the built environment, includes the land use patterns, transportation network, infrastructure systems, public facilities, buildings. And for the mediating factors, exposure media, environmental toxins, local climate, noise level, crime level, disasters and accidents, access to services. For the human response downstream pathways, the behavioral example is the physical activity, drinking, taking drugs. For the psychological, example is the satisfaction, the depression. For the physiological downstream pathways, example is the infection, immune system activation. For the health status, outcome indicators are the individual level. Example is the body mass index, perceived health status, well-being. Population level, example is the cause-specific mortality rates and morbidity rates. That's for the conceptual model of the environmental affect health. So for the work-related exposure can happen as a result of poor working condition and can lead to potential injury or illness. Environmental health problems posed by work-related exposure include such as issue as occupational toxic poisoning, machine operation hazards, electrical hazards, repetitive motion injuries, carcinogenic particulate inhalation, and heavy metal poisoning. According to Centers for Disease Control and Prevention 2013 and Krieger et al. 2008, prevention of work-related health problems require an integrated action to improve job safety and working environment. Occupational and environmental health nurses often collaborate on initiatives to reduce and eliminate work-related exposures, illness, and injuries. For example, a clerical worker leaves the office every day with back strain and a headache because of ventilation problems in the building after 5 years of repetitive movement. Um, An employee was diagnosed with a carpal tunnel syndrome. An operating room nurse had a miscarriage and recalls on many of her coworkers have been able to carry their babies to term. A dry cleaner often leaves work feeling lightheaded and dizzy from inhaling solvents at the shop, and one day she had a um, car accident. Then after that, collective problems related to employment or occupation are often related to perceived as individual injuries, and no one connects the dots. Is ongoing to determine the outcomes of work-related environmental exposures. Outdoor air quality refers to the purity of the air and the presence of air pollution. The EPA 2012 has classified the 6 common air pollutants who the World Health organization estimates that air pollution is the 13th leading cause of mortality worldwide, contributing to approximately 800,000 premature deaths each year. Particulate matter, one common pollutant, causes worsening respiratory symptoms, more frequent asthma-related medication use, decreased drug lung function, recurrent healthcare utilization, and increased mortality. It is according to Anderson et al. 2012. Air pollution originates from industry, dry cleaning factories, oil refineries, coal burning, power plants, modes of transportation, cars, buses, trucks, and planes, and naturally occurring events, volcanic eruptions, and windstorms. Typhoons, electrical storms, smog, gaseous pollutants, or the excessive hydrocarbon levels, aerial herbicide spraying, and acid rain all contributes to air pollution. So ozone is a common pollutant and is the primary component of smog. Ozone is formed when nitrogen oxides created by the burning of fossil fuels in power plants, automobiles, and factories react with oxygens and sunlights. According to EPA 2013, ozone, along with other hazardous atmospheric pollutants, causes or contributes to asthma, allergic reactions, bronchitis, lung cancer, chronic and respiratory disease, and death and harm animal and plant species. According to Shenwiki et al. 2008 and Sheffield et al. 2011, furthermore, sulfur dioxide, a byproduct of burning coal and other fuels, contributes to acid rain, which affects terrestrial ecosystems by increasing um, soil acidity, reducing the nutrient availability, mobilizing toxic metals, leaching soil, chemicals, and altering species composition. According to EPA 2012, two significant issues related to outdoor air quality are of global concern. First, the amount of protection in the atmospheric layers is diminishing. For the major air pollutants and their effects, includes the ozone, carbon monoxide, nitrogen dioxide, sulfur dioxide, particulate matter, and the lead. For the ozone, it is a colorless gas that is the major constituent of smog at the Earth's surface. Ozone is formed in the lower atmosphere as a result of chemical reactions among oxygen and volatile organic compounds. And nitrogen oxide is the presence of sunlight, particularly during hot weather. Sources of this harmful pollutant includes vehicles, factories, landfills, lawn equipment, farm equipment, and industrial solvents. The effects of it can irritate the respiratory tract, impair lung function, and cause throat irritation, chest pain, cough, and susceptibility to lung infection. Individuals with asthma and other existing respiratory conditions are particularly vulnerable. Ozone can also reduce agricultural yields and injure forests and other vegetation. For the carbon monoxide, it is a colorless and odorless gas that is emitted in the exhaust of motor vehicles and other kinds of engines during combustion of fossil fuels. It is emitted from the engines of cars, buses, trucks, and other small engines, and from the industrial processes. High concentration can be found in the confined spaces. Example is the parking garages, poorly ventilated tunnels, or along roadsides during periods of heavy traffic. The effect is it reduces the ability of blood to deliver oxygen to vital tissues, affecting primarily the cardiovascular and nervous systems, and lower the concentrations have been shown to adversely affect individuals with heart disease and to affect exercise performance. For the nitrogen dioxides, it is a light brown gas at a lower concentrations. In higher concentrations, a significant component of brown urban haze. It forms from the burning of fuels utilities, industrial boilers, and engines of cars and trucks. For the effect, it is a major component of smog and acid rain. When concentrations are high, it can increase respiratory illnesses. Example are the chest colds and coughing in children. For asthmatic people, it may exacerbate breathing difficulty. Sulfur dioxide, it is a colorless gas, odorless at low concentration, but pungent at very high concentration. It is emitted from industrial, institutional, utility, and apartment house furnaces and boilers, as well as petroleum refineries, smelters, paper mills, and chemical plants. For the effect, it is one of the major components of smog. At high concentration, it can harm humans. Asthmatic people are particularly vulnerable. It can also harm vegetation and metals and acidify lakes and streams. For the particulate matter, it is a droplets from smoke, dust, ash, and condensing vapors that can suspend in the air for long periods. It is emitted from industrial processes, vehicles, wood smoke, dust from paved and unpaved roads, construction, and agricultural. And the effect, it can affect breathing and elicit respiratory symptoms, causing increased respiratory disease and lung damage. Children, elders, and people with heart or lung disease are especially at risk. They can also damage paint, soil, and clothing, reduce visibility. And the last is the lead. It is a metal found in nature as well as byproduct of industry. Can contaminate substances. Example are the soil dust that can be directly inhaled. It is a metal processing is the major source of the lead emissions into the air today. Lead is generally found near lead smelters, waste incinerators, utilities, and lead acid battery manufacturers. Lead can adversely affect mental development and performance, kidney function, and blood chemistry. Young children are particularly at risk to its effects. Water quality refers to the water supply's availability, volume, mineral content levels, toxic chemical pollution, and pathogenic microorganism levels. Water quality consists of the balance between water contaminants and the existing community capabilities um, to purify water for human use and plant and wildlife sustenance. Water quality problems include experiencing droughts, dosing reservoir with chemicals to reduce algae, and contaminating aquifers with pesticides and fertilizers leaching. Lead from water pipes and oil spilling from transport tankers or leaking offshore wells. Other sources of water pollution are microbial contamination from poorly managed or maintained septic sewage systems and animal feedlot wastes. According to EPA 2013, water pollution can be from point sources, a well-defined source. Example is the factory sources, the discharge, or the non-point sources, urban runoff, domestic lawn care, and air-to-water transfer. Advances in water treatment technologies in industrialized countries have controlled many water-related diseases such as cholera, typhoid, dysentery, and hepatitis A. Nevertheless, disease outbreaks resulting from contamination by untreated groundwater and inadequate chlorination remain a concern in both urban and rural areas in developing countries. Other potential water contaminants include accelerated soil erosion caused by construction, agricultural, and deforestation, which can contribute to high concentration, uh, which can contribute to those by cognizant of all these realities and challenges. The Philippine government promulgated in 2004 Republic Act 9275, or the Clean Water Act. It directed the Department of Environment and Natural Resources to act as lead agency in the implementation and enforcement of the provisions of this law. It likewise tasked the Department of Health to be primarily responsible for the promulgation, revision, and enforcement of drinking water quality standards in the country. Uh, given this mandate, the Department of Health issued Administrative Order 2017-0010, also known as the Philippine National Standards for Drinking Water. It requires that the following must be checked to determine whether the water is safe for human consumption. Example are the microbial quality tested through parameters of total coliform, fecal coliform, and heterotrophic plate count. Number 2 is the chemical and physical quality tested through parameters of pH, chemical specific, and so on and so forth. So, as I was saying, it requires that the following must be checked to determine whether it is safe for human consumption. It is the microbial quality, chemical and physical quality, the radiological quality. Regular testing for water supply is likewise required pursuant to this standard. The prescribed schedule are follows: every 3 months for level 1, every other month for level 2, and frequent sampling for every 5,000 population in level 3 water facilities. It is according to Department of Health 2017. The Department of Health also developed implementing rules and regulations of the Code of Sanitation of the Philippines. Um, Chapter 2 pertaining to water supply specific prohibition under this code are shown in the is shown in this slide. Moreover, communities are advised to utilize water only from established sources as provided for in the law for the law. According to Department of Health 1995, this is to ensure um, the health of the people. Um, it is to um, It is to prevent occurrence of waterborne diseases, highlights the levels of and classification of water supply in the country. The types of water supply in the communities vary greatly depending on the location and the number of population in the area. Level 3 type of water supply is highly recommended in urban centers that are densely populated. The reason primarily is that in this level, water is treated and is distributed through household in pipe systems, thereby reducing the likelihood of contamination. For the water supply sanitation approved type of water facilities, level 1. Level 1 is the point source, a protected well or developed spring with an outlet but without a distribution system, generally adaptable for rural areas where the houses are thinly scattered. This serves an average of 15 households. The level 2 is the communal faucet stand post, a water supply facility composed of source, a reservoir, a pipe distribution network with adequate treatment facility, and communal faucets. Usually, one faucet serves 4 to 6 households, generally suitable for rural and urban fringe areas where houses are clustered densely. To justify a system pipe system, the definition was modified with inclusion of the underlying phrase with adequate treatment to emphasize that source of water supply has passed in the Philippine National Standards of Drinking Water. For the Level 3 water works and water districts, a water supply facility with a source of reservoir and pipe distribution network with adequate treatment facility, and household taps. A facility service that is generally suited for densely populated urban areas. The definition was modified with the inclusion of underlined phrase with adequate treatment to emphasize the source of water supply has passed the Philippine national standards for drinking water. So that's it for the water supply sanitation, levels of water supply in the Philippines.
Good day, my name is Daniela Caronga and I'll be discussing to you food safety. First, what is food safety? It is a discipline describing the handling, preparation, and storage of food in ways to prevent foodborne illnesses. We aim to have healthy food free from contamination. The food safety concerns is number one, malnutrition, bacterial food poisoning, carcinogenic chemical additives, improper or fraudulent meat inspections, microbial epidemics among livestock, food products from diseased animals sources. We must also take note that public health nurses plays a key role in foodborne illness investigations. Next is the potential microbial contaminants in food. Those are the bacteria, parasites, viruses, agri-chemicals. What do I mean by agri-chemicals? Those are the pesticides and fertilizers used in our crops. GM foods, because they have unpredictable metabolic processes in animals, humans, and plants. GM foods means genetic modified foods. Do you know that our government also have a food sanitation program, which sets policy and practical programs to prevent and control foodborne diseases? It works for the inspection or approval of all food sources, containers, and transport vehicles. Compliance to sanitary permit requirements for all food establishments, provisions and updated health certificate of food handlers, destruction or banning of food unit for human consumption, and training of food handlers and operators on food sanitation. Next is waste management. It entails the handling of waste materials resulting from our own industry. These are the potential health problems that are associated with waste management. So solid waste landfills accumulate methane gas. What do I mean by gas? It is a byproduct of decomposing organic waste. Without proper venting, this gas can move through the soil and cause fires within the area or nearby areas. Fact, do you know that only a small percentage of our hazardous waste actually reaches the designated waste sites? These are this is a big problem for our environment since it can affect the nearby areas who are living next to our waste sites. The government implemented Republic Act 9003 or the Ecological Solid Waste Management Act of 2000. Next is the 3 levels of waste management or the proper disposal. It only differentiates the water supply within toilets. Talking about waste management, also Hospitals also have a waste management program which entails the disposal of infectious, pathological, and other waste from the hospital, which combines them with municipal or domestic waste posed to health hazard to people. Without this, without disposing without hospitals disposing their hazardous waste, it can affect the people in nearby areas, and it can spread infections or bacteria or viruses to us humans. Program on health risk minimization to environmental pollution is prevention of serious environment hazards resulting from urban growth and industrialization, policies on health protection and measures, researches on effects of global warming on Earth. Now, these are the nursing responsibilities and activities. Health education, it is given. It is it entails to be a role model for others within the community by conducting a community assemblies or bench conference, or we can also act as an advocate or facilitator to families within the community. We as nurses, we also need to be active in participating in like attending training or workshops related to environmental health. Now, it is also our responsibility to assist in activities such as deworming, activities on a targeted groups, or coordinate in programs, projects, activities with other government or non-government agencies. Now, these are the 10 facts on preventing disease through healthy environment. First is prevention of deaths. Do you know that worldwide there are 13 million deaths that could be prevented every year by our environment, by making our environment healthier? That's a big number. Environmental factors in children under the age of 5, one-third of all diseases are caused by unsafe water and air pollution. Uh, do you know that every year the lives of 4 million children under 5 years old could be saved by preventing environmental risk? Countries, the main environmentally caused diseases are diarrheal diseases, lower respiratory diseases, injuries, and malaria. Also, better environmental management could prevent deaths by 40%. Imagine 40% from malaria, 41% from lower respiratory infections, 94% from diarrheal diseases. The direct result in the latest developed countries, one-third of death and diseases are direct result from environmental causes. Next is in developed countries, a healthier environment could significantly reduce the rate of cancers, cardiovascular diseases, asthma, lower respiratory infections, and etc. Environmental factors influence 85 out of 102 categories of disease and injuries listed in the World Health Report. Can you imagine that? 85 out of 102. Next is interventions. Majority of death in illnesses could be prevented by promoting safe household water storage, better hygiene, use of cleaner fuels. That's why us nurses need to use our roles as being a role model to others. Other possible interventions are increasing safety of buildings, proper management of toxic substances at home, better water source management. That's all. Thank you.